Every morning, Sarah Jenkins walked into the daily grind. A heavy scent of stale coffee and fried bacon clinging to the air like a second skin. The diner buzzed with the frantic energy of the breakfast rush, the hiss of the grill, the clatter of plates, the ceaseless chatter. In the heart of it all, Sarah moved with a practiced grace, her small frame working tirelessly, a whirlwind of efficiency. Her dark hair was pulled back, her apron already bearing the stains of a grueling shift as she navigated the chaos, balancing steaming mugs with her good hand while plates rested precariously against her hip. Her left hand, a landscape of bandages reaching her wrist, throbbed with a secret pain. Anyone watching closely could discern the stiffness in her movements, the quick involuntary flinch whenever her tender fingers brushed against something. Yet Sarah always offered a brave, bright smile, her impenetrable shield against the world. Behind the counter, Mike Peterson, the manager, leaned against the register, a cruel smirk plastered across his face. As he barked orders, "Hurry it up, Sarah. Don't let those customers wait. What? Do you think this is a charity operation?" His voice, sharp as a blade, cut through the diner, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few patrons looked up, shaking their heads in silent disapproval, their whispers like a collective sigh. At table 3, two impeccably dressed businesswomen leaned in close, their voices hushed. "Oh, that poor girl. Look at her hand, she shouldn't even be working." "I know, right? But Mike, he never lets up. Always on her case. How does she stand it?" Sarah heard them all. She absorbed every sound, the indifferent laughter, the pitying murmurs, Mike's constant cutting remarks whenever her movements lagged. Yet she pushed on because for Sarah, quitting was never an option. Rent payments loomed, bills accumulated, indifferent to her pain. By mid-morning, sweat beaded at the nape of her neck, and her good arms screamed in protest from carrying the relentless weight alone. She delivered an order to table 6, murmuring a soft, "Enjoy your meal," and turned only to collide with Mike. A glass of water flew, drenching his shirt. The diner fell into an immediate, deafening silence. Mike leaned in, his breath reeking of stale coffee. "Clumsy again, huh? Just looking for an excuse to slack off, aren't you?" A few customers shifted uncomfortably, one brave soul muttering, "Give the girl a break, man." But Mike ignored them, his eyes locked on Sarah with the predatory gleam of a hunter. She mumbled an apology, reaching for a towel with her uninjured hand, but he snatched it away. His lips curled into a grin that only she could truly see, a chilling smile that conveyed this wasn't about the spill. It was about absolute control, and in her heart she knew exactly why. Weeks earlier, Sarah had accidentally overheard Mike bragging about skimming cash from the register. She hadn't intended to eavesdrop. She was merely cleaning tables after closing when his voice drifted through the thin office door. At first, she dismissed it, thinking she'd misheard, but as she pressed her ear closer, every word confirmed her worst fears. Mike was stealing, and when he caught her frozen in the hallway that night, she remembered the raw fury in his eyes, the brutal way his hand shot out, twisting her wrist until a sickening crack echoed in the silence. The searing pain had dropped her to her knees, but Mike only sneered. "Clumsy, are we? Better stay clumsy. One word about what you heard and you won't just lose your job." Now, with her hand uselessly bound, she was being deliberately framed as incompetent. By the end of her shift, Sarah's body trembled with exhaustion. She leaned against the back counter, whispering a silent prayer no one heard. Little did she know, someone had been watching her every move. Someone she dismissed as just another regular customer grabbing a cheap meal. And that quiet, observant gaze was about to change everything. Most customers flowed in and out, devouring pancakes, leaving tips on a whim, and rushing back into their busy lives. But one man never seemed to hurry. He was older, perhaps in his late 60s, with neatly trimmed white hair and worn boots that had seen more open road than city sidewalks. Folks affectionately called him the vet because of his upright posture, even when seated, and his sharp, knowing eyes. Most assumed he was just another retiree whiling away his days over a plate of eggs. No one, absolutely no one, knew that Arthur Whitman was the true owner of the daily grind. For years, Arthur had deliberately kept his identity a secret, preferring to blend seamlessly into the everyday crowd. He firmly believed that the real truth emerged when people thought no one important was observing. That morning, Arthur slowly stirred his coffee, his gaze intently fixed on Sarah. He had been watching her for weeks. noting her unwavering work ethic, her tireless dedication, and the relentless way Mike singled her out. But today, with her hand encased in thick bandages, it was different. Every tray she carried seemed on the verge of slipping. Every smile appeared carved from pure agony. At the next booth, two young men whispered loudly enough for Arthur to catch. "Man, that manager really has it in for her, doesn't he?" "Totally. I've seen the others slack off constantly, but he never says a word to them, only her." Arthur's jaw clenched. He had managed businesses long enough to instantly recognize bias and outright cruelty when he saw it. Mike then strutted past Arthur's table, chuckling at something on his phone. When Sarah, struggling, asked for help carrying a heavy stack of dishes, Mike didn't even spare her a glance. Instead, he sneered, "Just use both hands." "Oh wait, you can't." His malicious chuckle grated through the diner like nails on a chalkboard. Arthur remained still, outwardly unreactive, but inside his blood simmered with a quiet rage. Later, as Sarah wiped down a counter, Arthur caught the faintest wince in her eyes when she bent her wrist too far. He also noticed the way she meticulously avoided Mike, like someone who had long since learned that proximity meant danger. Something was profoundly wrong. When the lunch crowd finally thinned, Arthur quietly requested to speak with the manager. Mike swaggered over, assuming it was another trivial customer complaint. "Food not hot enough? Coffee too bitter?" He smirked. Arthur shook his head. "I was just curious about that waitress. She's injured. Why is she working the floor?" Mike's confident grin flickered for a split second, then returned more forced. "Her? Oh, she's a total klutz. Always messing things up. Half the incident reports in this place are about her, but she begged to stay on her shift, so I, being the generous guy I am, let her." Every word out of Mike's mouth tasted like a bitter lie to Arthur. Generous? No. He had witnessed Mike's sneers, heard the customers' whispers, and seen Sarah's quiet determination as she pushed through pain just to preserve her dignity. That night, long after most patrons had left, Arthur sat alone in the corner booth, his coffee now cold and untouched. He watched Sarah still diligently cleaning tables with her good hand, still managing a faint smile for the few remaining strangers, even as her eyes grew heavy with exhaustion. The old veteran narrowed his eyes. If Mike claimed Sarah was the problem, Arthur was determined to uncover the truth for himself. And if his suspicions proved correct, someone in this diner was about to profoundly regret underestimating both Sarah and him. The next day, Arthur returned, settling into his usual corner booth, ordering the same black coffee. To everyone else, he was simply the familiar old veteran with nowhere better to be. But his eyes weren't on the menu. They were fixed on Mike. Mike strutted from table to table, cracking jokes, his laughter echoing excessively. But the moment Sarah passed by, his face hardened. Every move she made, he pounced. If her coffee pour was a fraction too slow, he snapped his fingers impatiently. If she wiped the counter twice instead of once, he'd smirk and mutter about wasting time. Arthur recognized a chilling pattern. This wasn't mere criticism. It was calculated, targeted harassment. And when Sarah accidentally dropped a single fork, Mike dramatically shook his head, lamenting to a nearby table, "See what I have to deal with. Always so careless." Customers chuckled nervously, unsure whether to take him seriously. Sarah bent down, her good hand trembling, her cheeks burning with humiliation. By now, Arthur's suspicion had solidified into absolute certainty. Mike was deliberately setting her up. That afternoon, Arthur discreetly slipped into the back office under the guise of finding the restroom. The door was unlocked, papers scattered across the desk. His eyes immediately landed on a stack of misconduct forms. Page after page bore Sarah's name, each one accusing her of petty offenses, spilled drinks, forgotten orders, a bad attitude. But Arthur had been a regular for months. He had never once witnessed Sarah acting out of line. He flipped further and discovered something far more sinister: cash register tallies that simply did not add up. Week after week, the numbers dipped, yet no official reports had been filed. His stomach churned. He recognized theft when he saw it. He had caught dishonest employees in his previous businesses. Mike wasn't just cruel, he was a criminal. That night, Arthur lingered longer than usual, sipping his coffee as the diner slowly emptied. As the last customers departed, Mike retreated to the office. The door remained ajar, and voices drifted out. "Another $5 grand, easy," Mike bragged, his laughter spilling into the hallway. And when they finally notice the missing cash, that little waitress will take the fall. She already has the most write-ups. No one will ever believe her over me. A second voice belonging to one of Mike's drinking buddies snorted. You're playing with fire, man. What if she talks? Mike's voice dropped, colder now, chilling Arthur to the bone. She won't. Not with that hand. Broke it good enough to remind her who's in charge. Arthur froze in the shadows, his fists clenching, the air in his chest growing heavy, each breath slow and labored. This wasn't merely theft. This was calculated, physical abuse. He thought of Sarah, smiling through excruciating pain, carrying on as if nothing had happened, and something deep inside him twisted with righteous fury. The conversation inside ended with drunken laughter. Arthur slipped out the side door into the cool night air, his face stern. For the first time in years, his military instincts flared. He had witnessed injustice across the globe. But to find it festering in his own business, he would not, could not, let it stand. The horrifying truth was finally out, and tomorrow the mask would be ripped away. Morning rush hour returned with its familiar rhythm, coffee pots hissing, forks clinking, voices rising and falling throughout the diner. Sarah moved between tables, her wrapped hands stiff against her apron. To most, she appeared as just another exhausted worker, battling through pain. But to Arthur, she was someone carrying a burden far heavier than dishes. Today, however, would not be just another day. Arthur entered quietly. Same boots, same worn denim jacket, but this time, his shoulders were squared differently. He wasn't here as a customer. He was here as the owner. Mike was by the counter, laughing too loudly, joking with two waitresses, who subtly rolled their eyes when his back was turned. The second Mike saw Arthur, his boastful grin faltered. You again, back for the eggs? Arthur offered no reply. Instead, he walked to the very center of the diner and gently tapped his spoon against his coffee cup. The soft metallic ring resonated, drawing curious glances from every booth. Conversations died down. Forks paused mid-air. Sarah froze mid-step, her eyes darting toward him, a flicker of confusion. Good morning, everyone, Arthur began, his voice calm, yet resonating with an undeniable authority. I believe it's time you all knew who I really am. Mike chuckled nervously. What? Writing a book or something, old man? Arthur's gaze locked onto him, unwavering. No, Mike. I own this diner. The room plunged into absolute silence. A fork clattered loudly onto a plate. Sarah's eyes widened, her lips parting in stunned disbelief. For years, no one had suspected that the quiet old man in the corner booth was the very person signing their paychecks. Mike barked out a laugh, though his face had drained to an ashen pale. You're joking. Arthur calmly pulled a folder from beneath his jacket and placed it on the counter. Pages spilled out meticulously documented misconduct reports, detailed financial sheets, photocopied register logs. I've watched long enough, Mike. I know exactly what you've been doing. Every false report you filed against Sarah, every single dollar you skimmed from the register, and I know precisely what you did to her hand. Gasps rippled through the diner. Customers twisted in their seats, murmuring. The two businesswomen from table 3 whispered, I knew it. I knew he was dirty. Mike stammered, his voice cracking. This is ridiculous. You can't prove. Before he could finish, two uniformed officers walked through the door. Arthur had called them that very morning. Their silent presence alone commanded the room. Mike's bravado shattered into a million pieces. Wait, you can't. This isn't. But the cold snap of handcuffs around his wrists cut him short. The diner erupted in a cacophony of whispers and murmurs as Mike was led away, his frantic protests drowned beneath the chilling clink of chains. Sarah stood frozen, her good hand pressed against her chest. For the first time, Mike was not looming over her. For the first time, the crushing weight of blame had finally shifted. Arthur turned to her, his voice now softer, filled with a profound respect. Sarah, you've carried this entire place on your back. While others lied about you, you kept it running. From today forward, you're not just a waitress. You are the new floor supervisor. Sarah blinked, tears welling in her eyes, blurring the faces around her. The bandage on her injured hand trembled as she pressed it against her lips, a muffled sob escaping. Customers clapped, some quietly, others loudly enough to echo through the now lighter space. And for the first time in years, Sarah straightened her shoulders, not as the woman people pitied, but as someone finally seen, finally acknowledged, for her true strength and unwavering spirit. Outside, Mike's furious shouts faded as the police car pulled away. Inside, the diner still carried the familiar sense of burnt coffee and grease, but the air felt undeniably different. Lighter, cleaner, filled with a nascent hope. Arthur settled back into his usual booth, coffee in hand. But this time he wasn't just watching. He was smiling, a genuine satisfied smile, because justice had finally been served. Never ever underestimate the quiet, enduring strength of those who keep showing up, even when the world tries its hardest to break them. Sarah's powerful story proves that truth always wins, and justice in its own time always finds the guilty.